17-year-old builds rocket and discovers Area 51 secrets.
But was Area 51 founded merely to test experimental aircraft, as the military insists?
It was the early morning of June 20th, 1971, when the quiet town of Mount Vernon, Ohio, witnessed an unusual scene outside the Adair household. Neighbors watched curiously as a tractor-trailer truck parked out front seemingly made a routine grocery delivery. But there was nothing ordinary about this operation. Inside the truck was a top-secret experimental rocket, an advanced prototype designed and built by 17-year-old David Adair. Surrounding the young genius were U.S. Air Force personnel disguised as local farm workers, dressed in plaid shirts and jeans. Their mission was clear and covert: to transport David and his rocket safely and discreetly, first to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and then to NASA's White Sands Missile Test Range. David Adair's story began in 1954 in the coal mining town of Welsh, West Virginia. Born into a coal mining family, David's upbringing was modest, but his intellect set him apart from a young age. By 8, it was clear that he was no ordinary child.
I told you we didn't know what we were doing.
While other kids played outside, David could be found in the local library, absorbed in books on mathematics and physics. Mrs. Hunt, the librarian, recognized his talent and began ordering advanced science books for him, quietly nurturing the curiosity of this young prodigy. Rockets, in particular, captivated David's imagination, and soon he was building model rockets of his own. At age 10, David's skills were remarkable enough to catch the attention of Estes, a company specializing in model rockets. The owner, Vern Estes, sponsored him, sending materials for David to test and provide feedback to improve the designs. Meanwhile, his father's talent as a mechanic became well known in town, especially among local bootleggers who relied on him to make their cars faster to evade government revenuers on the twisting West Virginia roads. His reputation for building high-performance cars eventually reached the Petty family, legends in NASCAR racing. They saw potential in David's father and moved the Adair family to Daytona Beach, Florida, where David's father worked in their shop, repairing and modifying race cars. David, now 12, joined his father in the Petty shop, where he also developed a reputation as a mechanical whiz. He could disassemble and rebuild engines with ease. Though, even with access to race cars, his true passion was still rockets. He had access to a machine shop, aluminum, and liquid nitrogen, allowing him to advance his rocket building. But this chapter would be short-lived. When his father sustained a career-ending injury, the family moved to Ohio, settling in the town of Mount Vernon. David's mother enrolled in nursing school, and after completing her training, she took a job as a night supervisor at a local nursing home. In Mount Vernon, the Adair family purchased a house with an oversized garage at the back of the property. David immediately claimed the space as his lab, dedicating himself to designing and building rockets. He often spent entire nights in his rocket laboratory. He test-launched his creations in nearby cornfields, and the locals soon took notice, with nearby farmers even clearing land for his experiments. For years prior, David's dreams played a pivotal role in his work. He had vivid and detailed dreams about advanced mathematics and rocket designs from an early age. They were so intricate that he kept notebooks by his bed to capture them upon waking. David's scientific prowess didn't go unnoticed. His teachers at Centerville High School recognized his genius and encouraged him to enter science fairs. He won numerous local and statewide competitions, eventually catching the eye of the U.S. Air Force, which awarded him a prize for his work. This recognition was only the beginning of the military's interest in David's abilities.
3, 2, 1.
The next pivotal connection came through his mother's work at the nursing home, where one of her patients was 90-year-old Irving LeMay, the elderly father of General Curtis LeMay, a 4-star general and chief of staff of the U.S. Air Force. He frequently visited his father late at night to avoid the press. During one of these visits, he struck up a conversation with Nurse Adair, who mentioned her unusual son, who spent his days and nights building rockets. Intrigued, General LeMay asked to see some of David's work. His mother showed him one of David's notebooks, filled with advanced calculations and rocket designs. General LeMay then took copies of the notebook to Battelle Memorial in Columbus, Ohio, a respected scientific research facility. Scientists at Battelle were astonished by David's advanced understanding of mathematics and fusion theory, confirming that he was nearing an understanding of electromagnetic fusion containment, a concept that, if developed, could revolutionize thermonuclear fusion. Realizing the potential, General LeMay decided to support David's research. He assigned his assistant, Colonel Bailey Arthur Williams, to oversee the project and granted it an unlimited budget. David's garage in Mount Vernon was transformed into a high-security lab outfitted with state-of-the-art equipment and security measures, including a false sliding wall to conceal sensitive materials. Military contractors provided everything David needed to construct a prototype rocket. Thanks to General LeMay's connections in the aerospace industry, David received rocket components from suppliers like Lockheed and Los Alamos Labs. David, in charge of the shop, instructed his team to wear flannel shirts and overalls instead of military uniforms, adding another layer of secrecy to the operation. For 26 months, David and a team of engineers and machinists worked diligently, assembling the rocket that could push the boundaries of modern aerospace technology. Finally, the rocket was complete, and the Air Force prepared for its transport. In a carefully orchestrated operation, David's creation was loaded into a truck by Colonel Williams and a team of Air Force personnel. The convoy departed for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where the rocket was transferred onto a military transport plane ready to be flown to the test facility in New Mexico. Prior to departure, David's mother shared a dream that echoed his ambitions. She had a vision of his rocket in the desert, with a door opening to reveal David stepping out. The rocket bore the name Pithalome on its side, a mysterious name probably tied to ancient mythology or spiritual symbolism. With his rocket en route, David was on the cusp of a monumental achievement. This wasn't just a test. It was a leap into the world of high-stakes military operations, advanced technology, and secret projects. The transport plane rumbled to life, departing from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, carrying 17-year-old David Adair. Beside him sat Colonel Williams, along with a team of Air Force security personnel. Their destination was the White Sands Test Facility in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where they would witness the test launch of David's rocket. Before leaving Ohio, he had a frank conversation with his father, knowing they needed a contingency plan. They agreed on a code phrase, a signal in case things went wrong. If David ever called him and told him to light his pipe and take it easy, his father would know to destroy the designs, the prototypes, every trace of David's work in the lab. He wanted to be sure that his inventions would remain out of the hands of those who might misuse them. Upon arrival at White Sands, the team set to work preparing the rocket, positioning it on the launch pad. As they gathered in the control room, there was an unexpected interruption. David and the team looked out as a black jet plane touched down on the runway. "Oh no, we've got big trouble," Colonel Williams muttered, reaching for the phone. He quickly dialed General Curtis LeMay, informing him that the Department of Defense had arrived, unannounced. The plane's door opened. A group of men in black suits and shiny sunglasses stepped out. They were followed by a shorter, older man with piercing blue eyes and wearing khaki pants. David asked, "Who are you?" He replied simply, "I'm just the guy who checks out technology for the government." "And who might you be?" David answered boldly, "I'm just a kid who blows up rockets in cow fields." David knew who he was. His name was Dr. Arthur Rudolph. He was a NASA rocket scientist, and he was about to take control of the entire operation. Dr. Rudolph asserted his authority, informing Colonel Williams and the Air Force personnel, "I own everything here. You all are under my command." Without delay, he ordered the rocket launch, overriding the original landing coordinates and redirecting them to a place 400 miles away, a barren, dry lake bed on the map. David, puzzled, voiced concerns about the remote location, but Rudolph dismissed him with a curt command, "Shut up and do as you're told." With little choice, David reprogrammed the rocket's course, and the countdown began. The ground trembled, even though the launch pad was over 2 miles away. The rocket roared to life, with flames shifting from orange to blue to a bright arc welder white. As the final countdown hit 0, it ignited with a flash and vanished, accelerating so quickly that it left only a shockwave, rattling the control room windows. Moments later, the control room phone rang. NORAD was on the line. They reported that the rocket was already 120 miles up, moving at Mach 37 and climbing. Everyone was stunned by its velocity and altitude. Without missing a beat, Dr. Rudolph ordered everyone to board his plane that was bound for the new landing site. David protested, reiterating that there was nothing there but a dry lake bed, but Rudolph silenced him with a sharp command. They eventually landed on a landing strip, revealing a massive base that was not on the map. From the runway, they taxied over towards a series of large buildings, where Rudolph commanded that Colonel Williams be detained. David and the remaining personnel loaded onto a transport cart. Rather than heading toward the rocket, they were whisked inside the football-sized airplane hangar. David noticed that something was off about this place. The room was brightly lit, but there were no visible light sources, almost as if the air was glowing. Moments later, a section of the floor began to descend, lowering them nearly 20 stories. As the platform stopped, David looked around, awestruck by the sprawling network of tunnels stretching in every direction. They drove down one of the tunnels. It was lined by bayed doors, and within some of these, David saw workshops with numerous personnel in hazmat-style suits working around what looked like a large disc and teardrop-shaped craft. After what seemed like a quarter mile, the cart eventually arrived at a massive circular metallic door. The driver jumped out, scanned his palm, and the door opened like the iris of a camera lens. Inside was another brightly lit room, again with no shadows or visible light fixtures. The room felt oddly warm, and at one end stood a large platform with heavy rubber curtains around it. Rudolph ordered the curtains raised, revealing what appeared to be some type of massive rocket engine, strangely reminiscent of David's design. However, it was vastly larger and with an almost organic form to it. Rudolph gestured towards it. "I hope you can take a look and tell us what you think," he said. David climbed onto the platform and ran his hands over its smooth, almost frog-like surface. Iridescent wave patterns rippled wherever he touched. It had subtle ridges spiraling down its sides. Veined clusters branched across the structure, their design intricate and alien. In the side of the hull, he noticed a 4-foot hole. Its edges, resembling torn shrapnel, felt oddly smooth. Intrigued, David climbed inside, finding neuron-like tubes running along the interior hull. At one end, a damaged chair sat before a control panel. He decided to sit down, and the panel slid towards him, revealing 2 domes with indented handprints, each designed for 4 fingers. Hesitant, David placed 5 fingers into the pattern. Instantly, concentric metal rings snapped into place, locking his hands. Panic rose as the rings began to tighten. He was about to scream for help, but then he heard a very distinct female voice echo inside his head. "David, be quiet." The rings loosened a bit, though his hands were still trapped. Then the voice said, "Sit still for a minute. This might hurt a little." In an instant, David felt a surge of electricity racing up through his hands like liquid fire. He saw millions of images as if fireworks were going off inside his mind. He screamed, "I can't take it anymore!" And suddenly, it stopped. "I've been waiting for you," the voice continued. "I've spoken to you in your dreams since you were a child. I am a power source from a craft of a long-lost civilization. I sustained damage in a galactic war and had to land on your planet a millennia ago. My name is Pithalom. Just as quickly as it began, it ended, and the rings released." David, confused and alarmed, climbed out of the chair, back through the hole, and onto the platform. David stared down at Rudolph and the other men. Angrily, he demanded answers about the engine's origins, realizing he'd been misled about the project's true intentions. David requested to see his rocket and to make a phone call to his father. Rudolph's demeanor shifted. He recognized that David was far more aware than he had assumed. Rudolph ordered the Air Force personnel to take David to see his rocket and to allow him a phone call. They rode back to the surface. David could overhear the men arguing about how they had to get him to develop a missile with first strike capabilities to be used in the Cold War. Once on the upper level of the hangar, David was allowed to call his father. He said, "Hey Dad, it's time to light your pipe and take it easy." Before getting back on the cart, David grabbed a handful of graphite grease that was being used to lubricate one of the hangar doors. They rode towards the rocket, which had landed about 3 miles away. David could see the rocket laying on its side with its parachutes flapping in the wind. He approached the rocket, opened up one of the access doors, and placed the graphite grease into the fusion containment chamber. The grease, seemingly harmless, would become a catalyst in a dangerous chain reaction. David jumped back on the cart and informed the guard that there was a fuel leak. They raced away and managed to get just over 2 miles before the rocket blew apart, sending metal fragments scattering. Flames and smoke shot hundreds of feet into the sky, casting an eerie, fiery glow. Upon returning, Rudolph stared at David, then the grease on his hand. He realized what had happened. Enraged, he struck David so that his teeth pierced through his lip, leaving him partially knocked out on the floor. As David lay there, dazed and bleeding, he heard the unmistakable sound of guns being cocked. When he managed to sit up, he was amazed that the Air Force security personnel had drawn their weapons and were now pointing them at Dr. Rudolph. Without a word, the guards swiftly took David away, locking him in a windowless room. Time seemed to stretch as he sat there, bloody and scared. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Rudolph standing there. It was General Curtis LeMay, cigar in hand. With a commanding presence, LeMay stepped into the room and then escorted David to his jet and flew him back to Ohio, where he was reunited with his family. The rest of the summer passed, and David went back to school for his senior year. He played sports and participated in social activities. He led what could be considered a normal teenage life. At his high school graduation, David was shaking hands and having lively conversations with friends and family about what was next in his life. He talked excitedly about his full scholarship to Ohio State University, where he planned to study theoretical astrophysics. The future seemed bright, and the celebrations were in full swing. But then, as he laughed with his friends, the mood shifted. Out of the crowd, 2 men in black suits and mirrored sunglasses emerged. They stopped in front of David and handed him a document. The bold letters at the top sent a chill down his spine. "Congratulations, you have been drafted." David Adair's life story reads like a science fiction thriller. He was a boy from backwoods Appalachia, inspired by vivid dreams filled with advanced mathematical equations. He learned mechanics in a NASCAR shop and launched rockets so sophisticated they drew the attention of the US military. His narrative delves into government cover-ups, encounters with shadowy figures like Men in Black, interactions with the CIA, and a trip to the infamous Area 51. His story even touches on Nazi scientists working for the government and the mysteries of reverse-engineered alien technology. With all these elements, Adair's life is a tapestry of intrigue and mystery. Were any of these claims verifiable? While David Adair demonstrates a remarkable understanding of rocket science, hard evidence to verify his story remains elusive. General Curtis LeMay, a central figure in Adair's account, was indeed a real person, and it could be verifiable that Adair's mother worked at a senior care facility where LeMay's father resided. Dr. Arthur Rudolph, another figure in Adair's narrative, was a prominent NASA scientist who received the agency's highest achievement award. Rudolph's background is significant. He was one of the ex-Nazi scientists brought to the United States under Project Paperclip after World War II. Despite these intriguing connections, Adair's claims about encountering alien technology, visiting Area 51, or interacting with CIA officials remain uncorroborated. Critics point to the lack of documentation, while supporters argue that such evidence would likely be classified and inaccessible. Where is David Adair now? As of 2024, David Adair remains active in the UFO and disclosure community. He continues to share his experiences through interviews, public speaking, and conferences. He is vocal about the need for transparency in technological advancements. Additionally, he supports the potential role of extraterrestrial intelligence in shaping human innovation. Adair has become a well-known advocate for exploring the mysteries of space, technology, and the universe. There is one intriguing aspect of Adair's story. It is his connection with Jan Williams, the daughter of Colonel Bailey Arthur Williams, who was allegedly assigned to oversee Adair's rocket design in 1969. Jan Williams contacted Adair after hearing him speak about his rocket development in connection with her father. She questioned him about his involvement with her father and stated that it was unlikely David could know the things he knew about her father without having a personal relationship with him. This connection adds a layer of credibility to Adair's narrative, suggesting that at least some aspects of his story may be grounded in actual events. So, what do you guys think? Is David Adair a brilliant whistleblower shedding light on hidden truths? Or are his claims simply too fantastical to believe? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Adair's story, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more mind-blowing stories about UFOs, secret space programs, and the mysteries of the universe. Got a suggestion for a future topic? Drop it in the comments, and we might feature your idea in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.